Hello and welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Stephen Ryan.
And I am Matthew Lucas, and we do post a video every week on a Friday, so hit subscribe and the notification bell if you want to hear of our continuing adventures as they happen.
And this week,
yes,
we are going to talk about one of my favourite topics, which is self-seeding plants.
Yes.
But in this case, self-seeding plants that are more about their foliage than their flowers. They all flower, of course.
Yes.
But they're about leaves and textures and forms. And there's a whole gamut of them I found in my garden, which I didn't realise I had so many.
We have made a video about managing self-seeders, and we've also made a video about thuggish plants, because you've got a bit of a thing for handsome thugs.
Yes, I certainly do. So they're, again, we're onto the same sort of topic, but we're looking at it in a slightly different way.
All right, well, I'm intrigued. Why don't we go and have a look at the first plant on the list?
Good idea.
Handsome weeds, Stephen, handsome weeds.
Yes, and this is one of them. One of my favourites, I have to say. Yep. This is commonly known as red-veined dock.
Yes.
For obvious reasons. It's got red veins and it's a dock.
Yes.
So, Rumex sanguineus, meaning bloody.
Sanguineus, yes, from our basic Latin.
Yes, exactly. And this plant will produce the classical dock-type flower spikes on it, which is little brownish, flowery, seedy things, which are of no particular importance other than to produce new plants. Certainly visually they're not that important. But the foliage is just beautiful. And what I do is I make sure that I control it, so I don't let too much of it go to seed. So some of them I'll cut right back when they're starting to flower so that I stop them from self-seeding. And like a lot of these plants, they'll often self-seed into crevices or in the edge of the driveway or in places where I wouldn't ordinarily get something to plant. But nature takes its course and the plant grows anyway.
Well, we'll show the viewers, but they are growing. It kind of looks like a Japanese Zen garden. They've chosen the most beautiful spots to grow, and you perhaps couldn't choose that if you were planting something. It would look contrived. But
it would. So they naturally place themselves quite well, and they, in my case, they're helping to sort of soften off the edge of the driveway so that there's no sense of bed, driveway sort of thing. It's more amorphous and sort of leads in.
Bled borders, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, exactly. So red vein dock. I might add the leaves are in fact edible.
Yes.
But boring as.
Well, like cabbage, not very exciting.
Yeah, so looks pretty in a salad, but I wouldn't get too excited by them.
So, is there a general rule then for managing these self-seeders? What could be like a basic principle, given all the different environments that our viewers are in?
All right, well, certainly in my own environment, I try and allow only one to go to seed when I need some new plants.
Right, so that might not be every year.
No, it won't be, because these are perennials, so they'll keep coming back year after year. So, when it starts to flower, I'll probably go through this year, because I've got quite a number of them, and cut them all back down to the ground and let them refurbish with new foliage. And then if at some point or another I feel like I need more, or one or two have faded out for whatever reason, then I would only allow one stem to go to seed, because it will produce hundreds of seeds anyway. And then it's a matter of culling any seedlings that come up too far out in the driveway, or just where you didn't want one, or whatever. So I just let nature take its course.
Well, so that's the rule that you would suggest for our viewers?
I think so. It should work for most.
There we go. Well, that one is a very handsome leaf plant.
And I've got another one for you.
Have you?
Yes, I certainly have.
Excellent.
And in some ways it may be as or even more showy than the red vein dock.
Well, let's go and have a look.
This self-seeder is one that I have quite a passion for. Admittedly, it's very closely related to nasty lawn weeds. This is Plantago major Rubra, or rubrifolia. So it's a plantain weed with large leaves, hence major, with a purpley red colour to the foliage. And again, it self-seeds itself into the driveway, around the nooks and crannies in my garden. It seems to cope with semi-shade through to full sun, although the burgundy colour is richer in sun. And if anything, it's about control, not how to grow it. And as I mentioned with the red vein dock, the trick is not to let too much of this go to flower and then hence seed, otherwise you'll have it all over the place. So I tend to keep the flower heads off it most years and only allow a little bit of it to go to seed when I need some more plants.
Again, another beautiful foliage plant. You said it's a relative of a weedy, common weedy plant.
Yeah.
A weed is just a plant in the wrong place here.
Well, of course, yes.
But what is its friend?
Well, you will all be familiar, I think, with the plantain that is a flat weed that grows in lawns. It seems to have followed humankind wherever we've gone. I'm not quite sure where its origins are.
Where does it come from?
Well, I don't think anybody really knows anymore. And it's one of those things that annoys people no end if they're trying to get a nice bowling green-like lawn.
But plantain, I thought, meant banana.
Different sort of plantain altogether.
Okay.
Yes, it's not related. There's no connection whatsoever, and I'm not quite sure why both plants seem to have basically the same common name. But certainly the plantains that I'm talking about are in the genus Plantago.
Yep.
The plantain you're talking about certainly isn't.
True. And I'm not seeing grapefruit
No.
on that plant.
No.
Well, I think there's a beautiful copper-leafed plant over there we're going to look at next.
We certainly are.
Stephen, another handsome foliage plant.
Yes, another one of my multitude of favourites. I think they're all favourites,
You
really.
spread your favours widely.
I do, but I wouldn't grow anything I didn't like, so
Fair enough.
they're all favourites.
There you go.
So this is the black-leafed cow parsley.
Yes.
Anthriscus sylvestris Ravenswing.
Fabulous colour, I have to say.
It is the most beautiful dark purpley black coloured foliage with its tiny little white flowers, a really good combination in fact.
This
Look
is
at.
already broken.
Oh, all right, well you can get away with it then. It's a self-seeder that has quite a zest for life, so I'm often pulling out extras.
I love that euphemism. A zest for life means it can be thuggish.
Yeah, well, it comes up in lots of spots around the garden here.
Yeah.
I leave it where it comes up, where it looks nice.
Yeah.
I pull it out if it's in the wrong spot or it's trying to swamp something far more precious.
Yes.
And it's a very good plant for tying borders together.
And I must say, where it's decided to grow along this border, it's very natural and beautiful.
Yeah,
because it is.
Yeah, well, exactly. It'll self-seed itself into the cracks in dry stone walls.
Yeah, which is exactly what it's done here.
Yeah, it'll self-seed itself into the gravel of the pathway, which it's also done here.
Yeah.
And so it's really a matter of moderating its quantity more than anything else.
Care, basic care and conditions?
Plant and forget. Although it does pay you to cut some of the old flower heads off when they start to go to seed if you don't want squillions more of them. And obviously put it in a spot where it gets a reasonable amount of sunlight, because a lot of these coloured foliage plants will pale and go sort of a dirty greeny brown if they're in too much shade.
Good
so it's
point.
very important to give it an adequate light. And if you're growing the purple-leafed cow parsley, you need to keep it away from any of its wild green versions. So if any of them come up green, make sure you pull them out. And there's a beautiful golden leaf version called Golden Fleece. And you need to keep Golden Fleece and Ravenswing well away from each other as well.
Because they want to have fun.
Yes, and they will end up producing some sort of weird mixture, I'm sure, or they'll throw right back to the basic green. So keep them in separate parts of the garden if you intend having both. And I would use them in different colour combinations anyway, because the burgundy one is great for toning down hot colours, so it looks good in yellows, oranges, reds, all that sort of thing.
Yes.
The yellow one goes really well with other yellow flowers and also with blues and purples and things. So I'd use them in a slightly different way.
Excellent. Well, is there something else we should be looking at in the handsome leaf arena?
Yes, we've got some others we can have a look at, so let's move on and have a look at the next one.
Okay.
All right, well, if you thought that the cow parsley was fabulous,
It
and I
is.
might add you'd have to be a cow to want to eat the parsley. By the way, it's not an edible plant, but we're going to look at one that actually is, and I think is just stunning.
Okay, can't wait. What's this feathery beauty, Stephen?
All right, well, this is bronze fennel. So it's the normal culinary fennel that people would use for fish dishes. What's that look for?
I don't like the taste of aniseed.
Oh, well, that's all right. Well, you don't have to eat it, but I actually love it with a fish dish.
Yeah.
But the bronze foliage form takes the effect in the garden to a new level.
I must say, it is gorgeous. It's actually really lovely to the touch.
Oh, it is. It's very tactile.
Like a
it's a
feather.
wonderful plant, but be warned. Don't let it go to seed, otherwise you'll end up with a garden full of it. So it'll get up to about 1.5 meters tall before it flowers.
Yep.
When it does flower, you get funny little yellow flowers on it, which are pleasant but not that exciting.
Yeah.
As soon as it starts to flower, I cut it off at ground level, and then within weeks it's back up again with this wonderful smoky brown foliage, which I just adore.
So the rule of thumb would be just to never let it flower unless you wanted seed.
If you needed seed for whatever reason, that's fine, but remember, each flower head probably has 50 or 100 seeds in it. So if you let a whole plant go to seed, just choose one. And you know, these plants are basically self-sown ones from an original plant that was there, but I now no longer let it go to seed, because otherwise I'm pulling out baby bronze fennels till, I don't know, till Christmas.
Till the cows come home.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this is beautiful, and it's in a lovely spot on your perennial bed too.
Yes, it does. It works really well in the perennial border. I think as an ornamental plant, it's definitely worth growing.
There you go. I really do not like aniseed.
Oh well, then perhaps I won't serve you fish with fennel in our house ever.
I don't love it, but hey ho, it's not all about me, Stephen.
No, lots of people love it. People hate or love coriander too, so I think it's lovely the world has all these different sort of tastes and variations in it. Otherwise it would be boring.
It would. Now, talking of which, well not, but what is actually before us, which is this not another one of your subject plants, Stephen Ryan?
It certainly is. Now,
what is this?
Well, it's commonly known as honesty.
Yes.
And people will know it by that name.
Yep.
I have to say, its common name doesn't make any sense when you consider that its botanical name is Lunaria annua, Lunaria being of the moon, because of the seed pods, which go white. And annua means annual, and it's a biennial. So it is not honest at all. It's actually quite a liar.
It's a dishonest plant. That is hilarious.
Yeah, so
maybe it's an ironic common name.
Maybe, I don't know. I've never quite got my head around honesty as a common name. It's certainly well accepted as one, so everybody would know it as that. The normal form has a very dull green leaf with a purplish coloured flower. And again, a point of warning, if you're growing any of the specific forms, make sure you don't have the common ones around because they will cross-pollinate back and forward again. So there is a variegated leaf one with purple flowers, which is quite hectic. And for some reason or another, I went tasteful and I decided to have the silver variegated one with the pure white flowers. And so I keep any other varieties out of the garden so that they don't cross and end up with a hybrid swarm.
And you know my passion for variegated plants.
You're getting closer to liking variegates. I know you are. I'll get you there eventually. So this particular one is fabulous during the winter before it starts to flower because it's just about a mound of this very attractive silver variegated foliage. Then it comes out with its tasteful white flowers, which just sort of gild the lily to an extent. And then later in the season, of course, when the plant gets ready to die and shed its seed, then you get these beautiful white papery seed pods, which of course you can pick stems of, clean them up, use them in dried flower arrangements, wait for them to get dusty, and then throw them away.
And actually, I remember that as a child that people had lots of dried honesty. It kind of, did it go out of fashion?
Look, I think it did. I think dried flower arranging and things of that ilk sort of come and go in fashion.
But the plant itself?
The plant itself, well, it went out of fashion in Australia when we went into the sort of native plant phase, because anything that wasn't an Australian native was suddenly looked down upon. So a lot of these plants sort of faded.
Not good for your business.
No, very bad for my business. But then the cottage garden thing came in, and these sorts of plants do in fact lend themselves very well to planting in a cottage garden style of garden.
Brilliant. Well, I've loved our romp through coloured leaf plants, Stephen.
It's been fun, but it doesn't stop there. I've got one more I'd like to share with people before we finish.
Okay, let's go and have a look.
All right, good idea. All right, Matthew, finally we come to one of the most bold and incredible looking plants I grow in the garden, I think. This is Arundo donax variegata, a variegated form of the oboe reed. And it's called the oboe reed because they actually make reeds for oboes and bassoons out of the stems of this particular plant. And I have to say, it is considered quite weedy in some areas, particularly the green form of it. I manage my variegated form. I cut it down at the end of the season every year because it looks scruffy as the late autumn comes on with dead leaves and what have you. But it can easily grow 3 to 4 metres tall, so 10 or 12 feet tall. So it makes a huge punctuation mark on the end of my border here. And it does have to have one of the most incredibly vibrant and in-your-face variegations of any plant that I grow. It's tough, it will cope with cold, it will cope with heat, but it does love water, and it's become, the green one anyway, has become a weed along waterways and things. So as long as it gets adequate moisture, you should be able to grow it almost anywhere in the world. And just be aware though, in some countries it's probably on a weed list.
Stephen, how on earth could we top our romp through coloured leaf plants, Stephen?
We'll be doing something interesting, I'm sure, next week.
So do hit subscribe. We post every week on a Friday. So come along on our horticultural journey and see what we are doing next. We look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes. And don't forget to send us a question so that we can use it on our Monday shorts.
We'll see you next week.